Good evening and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast. As always, I am Illeagle 86. I am joined by my fantastic and special friends, Techtic and Nerdbomber, over there in the other end of the virtual cyberspace within which we live. We're trapped here. We never leave. This is where we reside.
We just wait every week and can't wait to get the episode together. We don't do anything else. We just live in the serververse, kind of like Space Jam.
Yeah, I do fidget while I wait, though.
We talk to each other for roughly an hour each week, and the rest of the time we're in this like stasis state, kind of like the you know how in like the Matrix, all the humans are actually, spoiler alert, they're like in these little egg sac things and just like generating energy for aliens or whatever. I didn't pay attention to the higher concept of the Matrix, but I think that's the general idea. That's what we're doing. Anytime that we're not talking about pop culture and nerd stuff, we're just kind of like generating energy for something or someone else with our eyes closed. So we're happy to be here. Let's just start with that. And we have a lot to talk about today. We have to talk about the Field of Dreams. You know, what better time than the dog days of summer to talk about baseball, which incidentally, I'm not sure any of us are a fan of. But
I like baseball. Like I don't avidly watch baseball on TV, but there's something nice about going to a good old baseball game.
I like it enough. Like I think I'm like a lot of people where, I think I get offended unreasonably. I will say offended when people refer to baseball as America's pastime, because I'm American. I don't pass my time playing baseball, and I feel like a lot of Americans don't. I don't even know if the majority of Americans do. So that term kind of gets on my nerves. But furthermore, anytime I'm watching baseball, namely in person, I'm doing it for the food. The best reason to go to a minor league game, a major league game, you name it, is for the hot dogs, for the Dippin' Dots in the helmet. I don't even like Dippin' Dots, but if you put them in a helmet, forget about it.
And then you put the little mini helmet on top of your head and you pretend that it's all proportional, and then you joke and you have a good time.
Right. And so does everyone around you.
Oh, they're weird.
And it's the funniest thing ever. And that's what baseball is to me. But we're going to talk about, Field of Dreams, and I don't mean the Kevin Costner movie, which came out, a long time ago, which I also have not seen. Have you guys seen Field of Dreams?
You haven't seen Field of Dreams?
I haven't seen Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
That's all
I know
you
know?
That. Oh my gosh.
It was my high school English teacher's go-to I don't feel like teaching movie. Watched him so many times.
I have the gist of what's going on, but I don't have the particulars. So we'll get into that. There's news there. We won't dive into it now. We're going to be talking about the Xbox Indie Showcase as well. Kind of delving into a couple of games. There's a couple of games I really want to talk about from that showcase that I'm really excited for. Even as someone who's not an Xbox owner, you guys are probably super excited about it. So we'll get to that. And then we're going to talk about a long defunct social media, kind of a relic from the past, from our college days, when the three of us were in college, and something that was big on college campuses that is now coming back. So that's a bit of a teaser for you. Start working through in your head what we could possibly be talking about, because we will be talking about it. But before we dive into the news, Techtic Nerdbomber, we'll hear more in more detail from you later, but how you doing today? I usually start with a how you doing. This is no different. We're in the middle of August, the hottest time of year, theoretically. How are you handling the heat? Are you staying out of the kitchen?
I'm staying in the central air right now, mostly because we're in the Northeast, and, it's been rainy season up in the Northeast United States, at least the last few days by us. So we have been kind of hunkered down for the last, I'd say like a week, playing a lot of video games, getting some good game time in that central air, staying out of the heat.
Well, I've been in the kitchen too, but it's pickling time, folks. Don't forget to pickle your cucumbers.
Nerdbomber has you slaving away in the kitchen. She's playing a video game, and you say, "Can I play?" And she says, "No, get back to pickle."
Well, actually, my favorite thing is peppers. I have all sorts of peppers, and I love taking all the varieties and pickling them in the same jar, because you get this blend of awesome flavor. And so I'm enjoying it.
Pickling is... I'm a pickling novice. I've never pickled a single thing. I'm not afraid to do that. If it's vinegar, right? You put stuff in vinegar. Is that the basic
vinegar,
idea,
water, salt, sugar? Yeah, that's it.
Okay, but it doesn't ferment, but does it intensify the flavors? Is that the idea, or does it just preserve?
It's mainly a preserve type exercise, but like, I mean, you gotta love the vinegar flavor that combines with the cucumber to make it a pickle. It's just such a good flavor.
Right. Peter Piper picked a peck.
Don't ask me how much a peck is. Not sure.
Of pickled peppers. Yeah, I was going to ask you how much a peck was. I guess to the listeners, I will say Google that on your own time because none of us know. But I guess food for thought. So we can dive into Field of Dreams because this is a classic movie, baseball-centric movie. That may be why, I think when I was younger, I had the capacity for one baseball movie in my life.
A League of Their Own?
That was Angels in the Outfield.
Oh, that's a good one, too.
Yeah, League of Their Own, I've actually also never seen, which is...
What?
Again, probably a crime. Tom Hanks, Gina Davis, it's supposed to be incredible.
Okay, before we get into like the heart of football season, I'm going to need you to sit down and do some theater homework.
Day.
Yeah, and just watch a baseball movie, every weekend from here until the start of the real NFL season, because I know like that's when you get wrapped up in football. And just watch these classic movies. They're so good. You're missing out.
Sandlot? Did you see Sandlot ever?
Oh, yeah.
I did see Sandlot. Yeah, okay. That's a good point. I did see Sandlot. Everyone has to watch Sandlot. At some point, they peel your eyes back like Clockwork Orange and make you watch that if you haven't. So I have seen that. I shouldn't say. I liked Sandlot a lot. I watched a deep cut baseball movie for a second. When I was younger, for some reason, it's one of those things I'll never really forget it, and I don't know why, because it wasn't that good of a movie. But there was this movie, I believe it was called The Rookie, where Dennis Quaid. I saw this movie at a drive-in movie theater. That's right. The reason I remember.
Is that the one where he like busts the light in the field or something like that?
I don't remember the specifics, but I remember. I basically Dennis Quaid is like an older guy who's like kind of a journeyman pitching in the minor leagues, and then at some point he just like suddenly can pitch real fast and like goes to the majors, and it's like one of those like inspirational, like I think it was a Disney movie, and I remember that being like a baseball movie that I liked.
No, I'm sorry, The Natural was the one where he busted the light.
I liked Moneyball. But like Moneyball was also like, it was, I don't even know if it was it is a baseball movie, but like it ain't about the baseball.
See, this goes to show that they should really pump out more baseball media, don't you guys think?
I would, yeah. Like I think there's room for like, because I watch Friday Night Lights, which is a football show, and granted, I like football, but like there's a place for a baseball show, I think.
Well, I think,
wouldn't that be cool if they did something like that?
What is your ideal scenario for this show? Because right now it's, produced, directed by Mike Schur, and he did Parks and Rec, he did The Good Place, I think he had part of Brooklyn Nine-Nine or something like that. He does a lot of these like feel-good shows. And I think that, especially in like the wake of Ted Lasso and everybody loving how feel-good of a show that is, I feel like you could do that with baseball, slap it on Peacock, and everyone will have a good time.
So I was about to mention Ted Lasso, because that's something that is an ongoing phenomenon and kind of new love for me.
We're on the same wavelength.
I love soccer. I played soccer when I was younger. So like, again, I think I have more of an affinity for soccer or football if you're from across the pond than I do for baseball. But Ted Lasso, it ain't about the football. It ain't about the soccer. Friday Night Lights, in large regard, is not about the football. I would imagine Field of Dreams is not going to be about the baseball. And I don't know to what extent the movie was. I think it was quite a bit. But it's already so well positioned because Mike Schur is, to me, the single best mind on television. Parks and Recreation, The Good Place, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. No one's doing it like he does. No one hits as often as he does. And for those who don't know, Mike Schur, if I remember correctly, he played Mose on The Office. He was also a junior writer on The Office. That's, I think, like where he got his start working under Greg Daniels. The man is a genius in terms of comedy, which is kind of an interesting direction to take Field of Dreams, because I don't see Field of Dreams as a funny thing. I don't know if it was, but
it was more like it's heartfelt, and I feel like he can leverage, because The Good Place, we've all seen The Good Place here, right?
Yeah, I didn't finish it, but I got far enough along, I think, to not be spoiled.
Okay. So The Good Place, I feel like it's not funny per se. And in fact, in some places, it gets really thoughtful and introspective.
Philosophical.
Yeah, philosophical. And I feel like if he can channel that sort of mood to something like Field of Dreams and, bring a little bit of that heartfelt levity here and there, but not necessarily make it a comedy, I feel like that's a recipe for success. Because I would argue, like, yes, Ted Lasso even, it's listed as a comedy, but I would say that it's way more than that. Like, it's a character-driven story, and a lot of the characters tend to be a little funny. But like for the most part, it's just watching people go through life. You know what I mean? And I think that would work really well. Like, I don't think it has to be haha funny all the time, but I think
were you the person who told me to watch Ted Lasso, or did you recently watch it? Because I wasn't sure. I
think I told you, I'm a big Ted Lasso truther. We watched the first season last year when it came out. And I think right off the bat, I was like, you need to watch this. It's so good. Like, this is
Ted Lasso,
the TV show you need right now. And now that season 2 is out, obviously, like, we're watching it in lockstep, kind of.
Yeah, Christmas episode last week, which is kind of goofy because it's August, obviously. But Ted Lasso, like, and this is a sidebar, but like, there is no one doing it like Ted Lasso. Like it is so focused. Like you said, like it is theoretically a comedy, but it is so much more focused on making you feel good, being wholesome. Everything's above board. There's not a whole lot of like raunchy jokes, and even if there are, they're in very good taste. It's so much like I think I haven't watched Schitt's Creek. You guys have, I think.
What? Oh my. Okay. We're going to have like the education of Illeagle, and you're going to sit down. We're going to tape you to a chair. You're just going to watch a bunch of movies and TV shows.
But is it not very much like, I think Schitt's Creek was like that, in that it was just so focused on being really wholesome all the time. Like the comedy came with that. Don't get me wrong. It was funny, and Ted Lasso was funny, but it seems like its main goal is like, we're going to build characters that you're going to care about, and they're going to care about each other, and there's going to be just like this warm blanket of caring that like hugs you and makes you feel just really good. And that's like, I think, the thesis of that show, and it would be a great thesis for a show like Field of Dreams.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he used Ted Lasso as inspiration for tone in this show.
Yeah. I mean, sports are such an interesting vehicle for a television show, whether it be a comedy or whether it be a drama, like Friday Night Lights, which is another show that I mentioned before and I want to mention again. Is sports are so structured around, you have a team of people, and therefore you have an ensemble cast, and those people are bound to interact in a professional setting, in a personal setting. TV shows, when you say the premise of a TV show, 9 times out of 10, it's, there are people who are doing blank or are in blank. There are people who, are in a Parks and Recreation department. There are people who are on a soccer team. There are people who, are in the West Wing of the White House. Like, it's based on location, right? Whereas movies are based on specific things happening, not necessarily in one location. But I think sports are so well poised for that sort of environment where you can continually build stories around an ensemble of characters who are all on a team. Now, with that said, and maybe this is a spoiler, and I'm again displaying my ineptitude with regards to the movie Field of Dreams, aren't they all dead? Isn't that the idea? They're ghosts, baseball players.
Right.
Or
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's interesting in and of itself.
Well, I feel like that's where we could get like the philosophical elements that we saw in The Good Place. You know what I mean?
Right. For sure. And there's some sort of otherworldly, I don't want to say supernatural because it's not going to be a scary show or anything like that. But I mean, I'm trying to reach for it. I'm sure has been a show that is focused around living people talking to dead people, and like there's comedy to be had in that. There are life lessons to be had in that, without a doubt. So, to me, this is, pun very much intended, a home run of an idea.
But
the other person who's involved, who I want to mention, of course, Lawrence Gordon, who was originally a producer on the Field of Dreams movie, but also another executive producer, David Miner, worked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine with Mike Schur, which Brooklyn Nine-Nine is coming back soon. That's also an incredible show. But he also
You've at
worked
least
on
watched that, right?
Oh yeah, I watched that all the way through. When it comes out, I'm going to binge watch, or not binge watch. I'm going to watch that as it comes out, like you said, lockstep, like Ted Lasso. But David Miner also worked on Master of None, which I think gives another kind of dimension to this, because Master of None slides into that same area, but in a different way. Of Master of None is in theory a comedy. It's headlined by Aziz Ansari. Have you guys watched Master of None?
That was one where we tried, but then I got through like half the first episode and I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, Master of None, and I don't blame you for that at all, because Master of None, it starts in a way that it's simply not emblematic of the rest of the show. And it starts in a way especially that it's not emblematic of season 2 of the show, which is a masterpiece. Master of None starts with Aziz Ansari having sex with a woman and the condom breaks. And like they find the comedy in that. And that's like not... Master of None is like pretty heavy a lot of the time. Like it's one of those like dramedies where there is humor to be had, but it's so much more focused on humanity, which again, I think is where someone like that coming in and working on Field of Dreams gives you an idea of what the show's going to be. And I think it's going to be something great. I don't know. Do we know what network this is attached to? Presumably NBC. I think Mike Schur is an NBC dude. All the shows that...
This is on Peacock, so this is going to go straight to streaming.
Okay.
And that's another element here. Would this make you subscribe to Peacock? Would the expanding library on Peacock, as it stands now, convince you to sign up for it? Because I know none of us currently are subscribed to Peacock.
Incorrect. I have.
You're subscribed to Peacock?
Oh, yeah.
Since
I've
when?
had it for a while. I got it in February. I feel like I mentioned this on the show, but maybe not. I got it in February because and it's a stupid reason. I'll acknowledge that right up front. I had a hankering, a real craving to watch all of the Harry Potter movies. And for whatever reason, Peacock is the streaming service that got those. And that combined with the idea, I'll get Parks and Rec back, I'll get The Office back, I'll get shows that I lost back, was enough for me to sign up. Have I used it lately? Nope. But this is one reason for me to, for sure. Mike Schur is, like I said, I think he's the best in the business. So anything his name is attached to, I'm interested in at least trying it out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that statement.
Yeah, I mean, he's everything he's done, I have to some extent liked and to more extent respected. Even if it's not for me, I get what he's doing, and I'm sure he's not getting into this without an idea of what it's going to be. I'm curious about Leading Man. Like, if it comes to fruition as a similar idea to the movie, where my understanding again is that Kevin Costner, was he like buy a farm and the farmland is where the ghosts play? I don't know if that's what happens, but he's the intermediary, right? Mm-hmm. He's the one who interacts with all of them. That's a critical role, obviously, and it has to be played by someone who not only has comic chops but can play the drama. And I don't know who that is. I don't know if either of you have any ideas. I don't want to put you on the spot, but that's equally critical
so
to this,
tough.
and that's not yet known. Yeah. Oh, it's super tough. It's
who I would love to see? And
tell me.
This might be a little out of left field, pun intended. What about like J.K. Simmons?
No,
that is out of left field. He's a little old and too grouchy. I don't know. He's great. I've loved J.K. Simmons.
I got one for you guys that would surprise you. Tom Hanks.
Also old.
Yeah.
I think it has to be an old farmer.
Is Kevin Costner's not old though in the movie?
I don't think. I think he was like young dad age kind of deal, right? I'm trying to remember. I haven't. You've never seen it, but like I saw the movie so long ago. I think I need to revisit it now. I
immediately thought frequent Mike Schur collaborator Adam Scott. Put him in there. Oh, Paul Rudd. No, Paul Rudd. It's Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd would be perfect, honestly.
We figured it out. It's Paul Rudd. Okay, Paul. You heard it. You heard it here first.
We have nominated
call your agent
to star in Field of Dreams. You're welcome.
Yeah. That's one of those things when you hear it, it's got to be right. So, Paul, you know what you have to do. Do you mind if I call you Paul? Or would you prefer Mr. Rudd? Doesn't matter. Okay. All right. Pretty good. So yeah, there's no release date tied to this. This is in very, very early stages, but if Mike Schur builds it, They will come. That's the theory here. So be on the lookout for Field of Dreams coming to Peacock from the creators of Parks and Recreation and The Good Place. So we're going to move now into our next topic. I'm going to save the showcase for after the break because that's going to be pretty intense as topics go, I think. But I want to talk about Yik Yak. That is, of course, if those who have not yet figured out, that's the social media I was referring to before. Now, I want to preface this. When it was a big deal, which was back in 2013, 2014, basically back when it first came out, it was a big deal for a short amount of time. And to the extent that I remember it, I didn't have it. I don't know if either of you did. It was big on our campus. It was big on our campus. I know that for sure. We went to college together, for those who don't know. And I remember hearing about it because at the time we were in college and it was like a thing. And I remember thinking, even though I didn't get it, I remember thinking, what a great idea. So the idea of Yik Yak, as far as I understand it, again, I didn't have it, so correct me if I'm wrong, is it is a social media, I think like Twitter, or there's maybe more interaction than Twitter, but it's geographically, you write short text posts and you can comment on other people's posts, and they're only able to be viewed from within a 5-mile radius. So for a place like a college campus where there's a lot going on, there's a lot of young people, it was lightning in a bottle. It was localized Reddit, and it kind of took off from what I remember.
Yeah, if I remember, it had like
point.
the upvote, downvote option, just like Reddit. So it was kind of like a combination of Twitter and Reddit, and also offered some anonymity because you didn't obviously know who. Yeah, you didn't know who was posting what.
You want to know what I used it for? Hey guys, free T-shirts here.
Right. Well, no, but it was not only like a call to action in a lot of ways. It was, of course, a vehicle for comedy. It was, okay, something's happening in this part of campus today. They're doing construction on this road again, and I don't know, some funny comment would be made, and it would be funny. Like it was both a networking way for students to find free food or free T-shirts. That shouldn't be undervalued. But it was funny. Of course, what wound up happening with it was it became a vehicle for bullying, which is what sent it the way of the dodo, I think, in large part.
That is one of those things that I'm really curious about how they're going to handle it, because I know when the announcement was made that this app was coming back, because it's been defunct now for 4 years, and I believe a new management group, like people bought it, they took it over. It's a completely new group of people running the app. And one of the things that they made sure that they announced in their press release was that, any kind of harassment, bullying, etc., like violence, threats, all of that bad stuff won't be tolerated. But I wonder, how are they going to enforce that? Because if I remember,
it's hard to do.
Yeah, back in the day when this was like a huge thing, and I feel like that makes me sound super old, but I swear we're not that old. I just remember that there were a lot of Yik Yaks. Obviously a lot of them rose to the top of the pile because of the upvote, downvote system. But at the end of the day, there were almost infinite Yik Yaks. People were Yik Yakking all day. So who is monitoring in all of the different areas? How do you moderate that? That's what I'm curious about.
I'm sure it's going to have an interface where you can easily report those kind of things.
Right. I think I would imagine, again, I didn't have it, but what I would imagine may have led to the problem in the first place is when you're online, when you're on Facebook or Twitter, I think even to a large extent, if you make a fake profile or if you have a Twitter that's just called D's Nuts or something and it's not actually your picture or anything, you're still at least implicitly signing some kind of social contract where the things that you say, either just to the wind or to others, have potential to come back to you, right? On Yik Yak, a platform which is designed for anonymity, in a space too where I think a lot of younger people don't know the power their words can have and how easily it can be traced back to you. It was, the formula was such that the result of the equation was we're going to see a lot of bullying. Because of the anonymity, people didn't feel like they were, responsible for what they said. They were hiding behind a keyboard in every possible way. Now, they can't take the anonymity away because that's the idea behind the entire app. And I'm not saying they should, but I agree with Techtic. I think there's going to be a reporting function that, is going to be somehow tied back to you, maybe in a more concrete way, maybe in such a way that if you get reported, you get banned for a certain amount of time, or you get flagged and other people can see the flag. Something like that, something that is semi-permanent. Maybe the way they're doing it. I don't know how they're doing it, but, I think it has a lot of potential, if only because Yik Yak got to the TikTok style of naming an app before TikTok did. I mean, let's not gloss over that. It's great to say.
Here's the thing that I'm most excited about. We as millennials were first introduced to this app, and as such, we've been exposed to it. Now we're all enjoying ourselves in corporate America, and guess what, folks? Donuts in the break room. That is all I will be posting.
Donuts in the break room.
every Yik Yak at your company is going to be donuts in the break room, and then 2 weeks later, donuts in the break room. And just repeated donuts in the break room, and that'll be great. That's exactly what I want to use it for. I don't know. Like I think it's a brilliant idea. It makes perfect sense that it's coming back. It's a shame why it left, and presumably if it's coming back, they have a plan. Do we know what the plan is to combat the bullying? No. But there is also something to be said for, I would say since 2013, 2014, and you guys can weigh in on this too, there is an increased cultural awareness of bullying. And, I think the stigma of cyberbullying has been appropriately, the bar there has been raised. So they're going to take it seriously, and they should. And the people who are on Yik Yak are going to take it more seriously maybe than, the app's users did in 2013, 2014. And that may be a big part of it too. So I do have a lot of hope for this. I guess something we should also talk about is, we've said this a lot in the context of college campuses, but there are cities that have a 5-mile radius. Then it becomes this urban thing that I just think it has a lot of staying power as an idea. So where do you guys see this going? I guess it's a very broad question, but, is it a good idea? Will it stay?
It'll be a good idea on college campuses. I think it might be a hard sell in big cities. And the problem with big cities is that, limited to a 5-mile radius, or whatever the radius is, you're not reaching that many people. You may not care what the people in your 5-mile radius are saying. You know what I mean?
Right.
The big draw with Yik Yak, at least in our college days, was the fact that everybody kind of had this shared experience. Everybody on campus, maybe you were in different majors, totally different walks of life, whatever. But if there was somebody dressed in a banana suit in the parking lot or whatever, the main parking lot, everybody could laugh at, hey, look at the guy in the banana suit in the main parking lot. And that might not be applicable.
Techtic.
Yeah.
I remember
Techtic.
I remember when he did that. Yeah. Multiple times every Saturday.
He was just out there with a megaphone dancing the right way. Do you remember, what was it? The Peanut Butter Jelly Time song? That was just him out there dancing. I don't know why. But it'll be interesting to see if it flourishes outside of the campus or school area, because then if you want to reach people, you might as well just make an anonymous Twitter. You know what I mean?
Right. But there's a layer of exclusivity that's laid over Twitter, right? And that's how you get here. People aren't going to move, but some people might be like, oh man, if you're going to Austin next weekend, you got to get on Yik Yak, man. The Yik Yakking in Austin, Texas is
off the hizzy.
Out of control awesome. And I think that's cool. I think it's cool that there are geographically geographically kind of shuttered little social media zones that you can go into and get a new flavor for a town. Get a flavor for a town or a city through Yik Yak. And maybe that's giving the medium too much credit, but I think it's a really cool idea. I think high schools are going to have a heck of a time. Can you imagine being a teacher in a high school and maybe you miss a spot shaving that day, and the Yik Yaks are going to be going.
Actually,
Yik Yackers are going to be yicking and yakking.
Keep in mind, again, us millennials are now in the workforce, so
it's true.
Us on Yik Yak are most likely the teachers as well, And so
Sure.
if you're going to see, there's going to be a fight in the courtyard. Those fights are going to get shut down right quick because
Right. So-
they're going to be on the apps.
Do people still have fights in the courtyard?
No, it's usually by the buses.
I went to high school for 4 years. I didn't get held back or anything. I also wasn't like super smart enough to like go for 3 years. Never saw a fight. That's a media affectation.
We danced a lot more than we fought.
Right. Did you guys ever see a fight in high school? Because I never did.
Yeah,
I did see a fight in high school.
You were in the fights.
No.
You were picking the fights.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine me in a fight? I would just like cower.
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
There's a secret segment to be had there.
Right. How many fights did you have in high school? And if so, if you had any, did you win? How many fights did you imagine yourself having when you were laying in bed at night, like thinking about someone you hated? Because for me, it's a much larger number than 0, which is the real number.
Did you have a nemesis?
It was high school. Everyone had nemesis.
I didn't have a nemesis. Did I miss out on like a
get
like
the heck out
classic
of here.
high school experience? Did I miss something here?
Well, so what happens is you didn't have a nemesis, which means you were other people's nemesis.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, people didn't like you.
Oh.
People were. I don't want to go that harsh, Jesus. But like people probably were like, "Gosh, everyone's her friend. I hate her." That's like. And now we're getting off track. But yeah, secret segment that
They hate us because they ain't us.
Yeah,
The
you
high
would have
school-
been fought on TikTok. Yik Yak.
for sure. The high school experience.
Bleep.
Did you witness fights? Did you have fights? What's the most dramatic thing that happened to you in high school? We all went to different high schools, so there's probably some meat on those bones, and we'll get into that at a later date. But Yik Yak, we want to hear from you on the Twitter sphere, not on Yik Yak. We're not on Yik Yak, guys. It's not even out yet, I don't think. Do you think Yik Yak coming back is a good idea? Will you get Yik Yak? We have a bonus ideas thread that we put when we think about secret segment ideas on the show. We put them in a bonus ideas thread, and Nerdbomber just typed into it, "High school, were you cool?" So be on the lookout for that secret segment. Follow us on Patreon if you want to hear about that. But in the meantime, let us know if you are interested in Yik Yak, if you think it's a good idea, it's being brought back, what you think they're going to do about bullying on it. Do you think it has staying power? Hit us up at OW Illeagle 86, at OW Techtic, at OW Nerdbomber in our main show account, at Online Warriors 1. So that brings us to the midpoint of the show, which means we're going to take a short break here to shout out a sponsor and come back to talk about the Xbox Live Showcase, Xbox Indie Showcase. But before we do that, before we go to the break, I would be remiss if I did not shout out our fantastic Patreon producers, Mr. Ben Checkness, Mr. Stephen Keller. Take a bow once again. We thank you so much for continuing to support the show, help us keep the lights on, keep the mics running. Stephen, I believe, will be joining us very, very soon on the podcast, so be on the lookout for that. He's guested with us before. He will be soon again. And Ben is also on deck pretty soon. So that's one of the many benefits they receive from being one of our Patreon supporters at the night level, which is the highest of the 3 levels of support that we have. They get that occasional guest segment. They get input into the weekly game segment on the show, which will be coming later. I'll be hosting this week. They get this producer shout out. And they also, of course, get access to the monthly secret segment and vlog on the show. Of course, there's also a Squire level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment, and the lowly page, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. So for more of the details on all of those levels and how to get back to the show, help us keep this thing running if you're enjoying it, head over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast for more of the deets. Thanks again to Ben and Steven. We're going to take a short break now to shout out a sponsor, and we'll be back to talk about the Xbox Indie Showcase. Today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. Do you feel like you are stuck in a dinner rut? With HelloFresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients with mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip all those trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. You can now enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in 30 minutes or less. And with over 25 recipes to choose from each week, there's something for everyone to enjoy. All recipes are designed and tested by professional chefs and nutritional experts to ensure deliciousness and simplicity. So I have the menu in front of me here for this week coming up, August 21st, 27th, and I'm taking a look here at these beef enchiladas verdes. You know I'm about that Mexican food. You know I'm about that spiciness. And I'm also about easy cleanup and easy prep. This is a 30-minute meal from box to table. That is a very attractive prospect for anyone, let alone me, who, barely has time to heat up a Hot Pocket. So this is very exciting for me to see this and many other recipes on the site. And HelloFresh has no shortage of culinary options. Go to the link in our show notes to get $80 off, including free shipping on HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this episode. And now let's get back to it.
Do you love Marvel but are tired of hearing Cheeto-stained white guys talk about it?
Are you hoping to see the X-Men and Avengers face off?
Do you secretly want to be Jessica Jones or Daisy Johnson?
Or do you want to be with Valkyrie?
If so, you've found your new favorite podcast. We're your hosts, Madam Chris
and Madam Amy, and we are here to give you the commentary you want.
Marvel, minus the mansplaining.
Find us wherever you get your podcasts and visit us at themarvelousmadams.com.
Madams assemble.
Okay, and I want to make sure I get the name of it right because I've stumbled many times. ID at Xbox, there it is. Indie game event for all the Xbox indie game content. There were a number of games run through here, and I don't know how you guys were thinking we should go through this. I have a couple games in particular that I want to highlight, but I'm going to defer, how this event went. You guys are the Xbox owners here. I'm kind of an outsider looking in. What about this really excited you? What particular games did? And what are you looking to buy? These are indie games. Theoretically, the barrier to entry is a little bit lower, at least in terms of cost. So there's a lot of exciting things to be discussed here. Nerdbomber, what did you see that whetted your appetite for all things indie games?
I mean, there were a lot of cool games shown here. One of the ones that I was super excited for, obviously, Sam & Max Save the World Remastered. They showed a trailer for that. It's available now. That was a game that I remember really enjoying back in, I think it came out when I was in high school maybe, and I really had a blast with it. It's always super witty. Really enjoy the Sam & Max series. So, just getting another look at that was a lot of fun. Also, Ollie World was really, really cool looking to me. I'm always drawn to skateboarding games. When I was a kid, I used to imagine myself as a super rad skateboarder, even though I'm not good at it and can't really skateboard. And, this game just looks super colorful, super fun. The original Ollie games were a lot of fun. And this looks like it's, taking that next step forward, especially with that, 120 FPS and the 4K, running on the brand new systems. I feel like that's just going to be a lot of fun. And then the big one for me, and I'm sure you guys knew this was my big one. Pupparazzi looks like heckin' Pokemon Snap, but with puppies. And
I saw this coming a mile away.
I'm here for it, man. I literally I turned to Techtic and I'm we're buying this. I don't even care. I'm going to sink so much time playing with puppies, even though I have my dog is probably going to be sitting on my lap watching me take pictures of virtual puppies. You could just take real pictures of me. And you know what? It doesn't matter. This looks heckin' adorable. I'm here for it. Give me the Doge. I feel like all of that made me super dated because I think millennials now, we've been talking a lot about retro millennial stuff.
We're millennials. Yeah, we are.
So I'm going to continue that trend in this episode. And apparently stuff like Doge and heckin' is no longer hip, but heckin' Doges. Love them.
I mean, all the Zennials listening to this are still frantically Googling what Yik Yak even is. So, you could talk about Doge, you could talk about heckin'. It's just fine. So Pupparazzi, it strikes me as a game that maybe started with the name. Oh man, what if we called the game Pupparazzi?
Pupparazzi.
Right. But that's okay I think it's a great idea. I was
Could you
really into that one.
imagine if they were all just like, super drunk or something, listening to Lady Gaga? That was a Lady Gaga song, correct?
Oh yeah, big.
And just being like, you know what? This kind of sounds like Pupparazzi. Guys, let's make a video game.
Right.
I mean, that's all the greatest ideas start.
For sure. What, you mean like drunk listening to Lady Gaga?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how all my best ideas come about. That's how I came up with my poker face. But I want to go back to Ollie Ollie World too, because that was one of the ones I had written down for a couple of reasons. A lot of them you said, it looks super, super fun. I've played one of the better games, like it's so dumb, but like there's a mini game in WarioWare, the original WarioWare that was skateboard based. And it was really, it was a side scrolling kind of jump to avoid things, crouch to avoid things. But holy crap, I sank hours into that. And this is just a better version of that. And also, can we take a second? Is that not Ash Ketchum on the skateboard? Because when I first saw him, I was like, oh my God, they put Ash Ketchum on a skateboard. And like, maybe I don't know what Ash Ketchum really looks like. But I saw there's like this red and white hat that's turned backwards that I was like, that's freaking Ash Ketchum.
No, it's got to be sideways.
Well, fair enough, I suppose. But that was one of the first things I thought of. Ollie World looked really, really cool. I want to shout out to that I was really into the first, which may not come as a surprise to either of you. Again, look, we know each other. We know what we all like. I was really into Lab Rat.
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, Lab Rat I think is my single favorite one that we saw. It's very simple. It's very puzzle based. But it looks kooky and weird and fun, and like it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it has very, very simple puzzle mechanics.
It had
that you could sink
hardcore
hours into.
Portal vibes.
Yeah,
and
which look how popular that game was.
If you guys know me, I love puzzles, and I also love chilling out. That game was all of those things, and you can even it appeared that there was a play with friends option, so I got my couch option too, my couch co-op. I am sold on that game.
There's definitely too, and it's similar to Portal too, there's like this very unique kind of gallows humor that complements a game like that so well, and it looks like they're going to implement that same sort of thing with Lab Rat. So I wanted to shout out Lab Rat. The other game is, I was actually surprised to see it here because I don't consider it. No, I'm surprised this is an indie game because this game is actually a game that I haven't played much of. I have played some of it. I played a lot of it that I have played on the PC back in, oh gosh, I don't even know when the first one came out. It would have been in the aughts sometime. Again, we're millennials. Evil Genius 2 World Domination. So Evil Genius is not the kind of game that I would typically play. It's very strategy oriented. You build a base, you lure good guys into it, and you're a bad guy and you want to kill them, basically. There's more involved than that. Picture yourself as Dr. Evil in an Austin Powers movie. You're trying to prepare Preparation H, which is one of the jokes from Goldmember, that sort of thing. You have an evil plan that you need to execute, and it's like a roller coaster tycoon version of that, basically. The overall vibe and ambiance of Evil Genius 2 World Domination, or I guess the Evil Genius franchise at large, is incredible. It has a really good soundtrack. It has this, I think it's like kind of a James Bond driven, almost like in the 50s, vaguely retro, like Austin Powers was too, that I really respond to. So that was another one that, I know my brother's super into that game. That's definitely one that I could certainly see myself sinking so much time into. And also, Techtic, for what it's worth, it's a game that I think you would get a lot out of. I don't know if that was one that you had noticed watching this showcase, but it's very much create a base, lay traps in certain places to catch certain people, design and customize the henchmen that you have to. It's a little tinkery. You have to create a plan and then execute it in a certain way. And it's very, very satisfying for so many reasons. That's another one that I wanted to shout out. That's a game that the first one came out again in the early aughts, and then that franchise went into hibernation, and Evil Genius 2 came out either early this year or late last year. for PC again, and now I believe it looks like they're porting it to Xbox, which
You know,
is super
I
cool.
was definitely interested in that one. I got hardcore Fortress vibes from that one.
So Fortress is more traditional shooter. It's more combat based. This is much more. It's not real time strategy, but it's like Roller Coaster Tycoon. That's the best way I could use to describe it. It's like a Roller Coaster Tycoon version of you're building a castle or an underground lair, more predominantly, I think, that you have to manage.
See, I'm just gonna say my top three. My top three were obviously Lab Rat, Lightyear Frontier. That one was just, again, I'm really digging the chill vibe and the co-op vibes. So just you guys are gonna find me on my couch in the fall, chilling, hanging out, maybe some music, maybe some lo-fi in the background. I'm gonna be farming on my little planets.
Yeah, that one, because I know how much you love Animal Crossing and games like that. I mean, this isn't necessarily Animal Crossing exactly. I mean, it's like Mecha, and it's obviously much different. But that kind of vibe, I feel like you vibe with very well.
It's like I can be productive while playing video games. Because I'm incredibly antsy, so I need to feel this sense of accomplishment in order to enjoy myself.
You got to vibe with the vibe.
Yeah.
You know?
And so that's my second one. And then my third one is Pathfinders. That one had hardcore Dungeons and Dragons vibe. It was an epic adventure, play it with friends, and had sweet character customization. So for that, I'm here for it. Plus, I got to mix up the chill vibe every now and then.
Right. So Pathfinder, I don't know if it's the case, but I've played a very D&D-esque card/board game called Pathfinder. So there may be a tie in there. I don't remember.
I think they might be part of the same
connected,
franchise. Yeah, connected.
I would think they would have to be. And for what it's worth, the board game is amazing. And it's designed to be, you get together, much like D&D is. You get together one night, you play it with friends, and you finish a certain aspect of the campaign. You defeat a boss monster or something. But then there is a legacy to it where then you put together your character deck, you put it somewhere that you know where it is, and the next time that group of friends gets together to play, you pick up that character deck again, and you have new abilities now. And it is like it's a very specific kind of game that admittedly is not my cup of tea, but it does look like a version of that sort of experience that is poised to be very well executed. So no doubt, that looks awesome. There were so many games here that we, unfortunately, don't have a whole lot of time to mention. The Big Con, Inked a Tale of Love, Wandering Village looked cute. Many more. Space Lines from the Far Out, which looked really kooky and really fun. And that's the thing about indie games, right? And showcases like this, they take themselves so much less seriously. And that is such a boon a lot of the time. Whereas with the bigger events, everything's gritty and real, and there's a place for that too. But this is just so much more like, I don't want to say cartoony because that sounds bad, but a game like Pupparazzi, which looks so fun, doesn't show up at the bigger showcases because it's, I don't know, what's the word you would use, Nerdbomber? Like, again, I don't want to say cartoony, I don't want to say kiddish because those are diminutive in the wrong way.
It's not the big budget. Like the nice thing about indie games is that they don't have the big budget. They don't have that finesse and polish that your AAA games are going to have. And so they don't tend to be showcased at a lot of the big E3 events. Although lately we have been seeing more indie showcases, which has been really nice because in addition to this one, there was also a Switch one and we didn't have time to cover everything. But the nice thing about indies, like you said, is that they can experiment, they can have fun, they're not beholden to, we have to make X amount of money, otherwise our game is a failure. They can try new things. They push the genre forward.
Yeah, that may be what, especially in terms of visuals, that may be what it is they can think a little bit more outside the box. But it makes showcases like this, I would characterize them so much more readily as easy watching relative to, like a Bethesda showcase where you're thinking of each of these things as full length movies that have super high production value, super high budgets, things like that. And to be able to get away from that, I think is good for a number of reasons. So if you haven't seen this showcase. Go check it out. Check out the games we mentioned. Let us know if there's ones that we missed that we didn't touch on too much that, spoke to you. And I could buy an Xbox, I guess, if you don't have one. If you're like me, think about buying an Xbox. I shouldn't just tell you to buy an Xbox, but that brings us to what we've been up to. And I'm going to take the lead today. I only have one thing I want to talk about. I recently went on a long drive, and if you know me, if you listen to the show for a certain amount of time, you know that when I go on long drives, the name of the game is audiobooks. That's really the only time I listen to audiobooks. But I often get a lot out of audiobooks, and I rent them from the library online. I never leave my house. I do it on my phone. We've PSA'd for libraries on the show before. I think Nerdbomber in particular is like a big library stan.
Support your local library.
But it is such an invaluable resource, especially for audiobooks. I listened to a book called Greenlights, and the title may ring a bell for some of you who are Matthew McConaughey fans and fans of the McConaissance. So this is Matthew McConaughey's memoir that he wrote when he turned 50. It came out, I think, last year, the tail end of last year, I think, during the pandemic. I'll tell you what, a lot of this book is, of course, what you think it would be, which is, in a sense, a tell-all and talking about how he first broke into the industry and the various experiences that he worked on, and how all right became his catchphrase, which is actually a very interesting story. It's based on production of the first movie he was on. But so much more of it is about his life philosophy, which is like, I think in a way that memoirs are, it's very driven by his upbringing, which in a lot of ways was fractured and fraught with issues. But he has this like Zen thing going on that is a little bit hard to characterize. He'll tell you about his experiences, and then he will put things into the book called notes to self, prescriptions, and bumper stickers. And all of these things are kind of deeply philosophical, like if a beatnik poet and a revivalist preacher had a baby and they were trying to explain something to you that you could apply to all aspects of your life. It's like that. That aspect of it, I will admit, got a little bit tiresome. I would have liked much more of just the traditional tell-alls. He wound up really cramming a lot of stuff I wanted to hear more about, like Interstellar, True Detective, into the back half of the book, and not giving them the column inches they deserved. But he would be telling a story about, making Dallas Buyers Club, which he won Best Actor for. And then in the middle of telling a story about filming a scene, he would be like, note to self. Well, let me try and do a Matthew McConaughey impression. Because it was read by the author, by the way.
Note to self.
It was way more like yelling. It was like, note to self. The genie is in the smoke. And that was it. And a lot of time he wouldn't even explain what that meant. The genie is in the smoke. That was one specific note to self that he made. That was about how magic isn't held in the lamp or something. I don't even understand. I don't remember what it was. But there were so many things like that were just him kind of philosophizing with... He's a great writer, I will say, assuming he wrote it himself, which I think he did. I do think he did. It was fascinating to listen to, especially in audiobook form with him reading it. But for me, it was a little bit of a mixed bag. I wanted more of a traditional memoir, and that's not what I got. He's an incredibly interesting person, but I do think he's a little bit more interesting than he is. So I guess if you're going to go read it or listen to it, bear that in mind. But I would recommend it at large. He's had an interesting life. At the end of the day, that's what you read a memoir for. And he has that to him in spades. So, I don't know. Check out Greenlights. But by the way, the title of Greenlights, and I think it was in his Best Actor speech when he won for Dallas Buyers Club. His life philosophy is give it a green light. Kind of like Yes Man, but not really. If you've seen that movie with Jim Carrey. It's a little bit more nuanced than that, obviously, because in the movie Yes Man, things don't work out. Spoiler alert. But it's kind of based on this principle of your life is going to have red, yellow, and green lights, and you want to try and hit green lights as often as possible. And there's a way to do that systematically, at least according to him, that is based on how you handle the yellow and red lights. It's kind of goofy imagery that's based around a much more basic and easy to understand idea, but it works. I have to give him credit for that. It works. So yeah, green lights, go check it out. That's my only kind of what I've been up to today. There's a lot else going on that I'll give updates on in coming weeks, I have no doubt, but I wanted to shout out that piece of work for y'all. So Techtic, keep us rolling here.
So my most exciting thing is more on the serious side. I got an endoscopy recently. I'm getting old, folks.
That is,
and
well, how about that?
I have to say, some of the best sleep I ever got.
Yeah. So we talked about this last week off the air. I had an endoscopy. I always say endoscopy, which is wrong. It's endoscopy. I believe you're right. And I watched Shrek. Well, I didn't watch it. I turned it on after this procedure when I got home, and I fell asleep, and I woke up later in a puddle of my own drool. That's the best part of having a procedure, and endoscopy is no exception to that. So you got some good rest?
Yeah, and I found out the kind of sleepy person I am. I'm apparently a really nice guy, pleasant to be around, but I struggle with finishing my food. Started eating an Uncrustable, fell asleep, got woken up, finished eating the Uncrustable.
It was very fun to watch. He nodded off mid bite, and I was like, "Hey, Techtic, probably want to finish that one, huh, bud?" And he was like, "Huh?"
When you came to, in the recovery room or whatever, was Nerdbomber there?
No,
because if you're alone in that situation, it could be pretty disorienting.
No, they weren't allowing people into the hospital because COVID times. But the nurse, it was actually really funny. So I'm sitting in the parking lot because they gave me a time window to come back for him for. And so I'm sitting in the parking lot, and she gives me a call. She's like, "Hey, are you still at home?" And I'm like, "No, you guys said show up at 1:00. I'm here. It's 1:00." And she was like,
and they were like, he's really messed up. You gotta wait.
Well, no, they were like,
he won't stop talking.
They were like, "Well, he's asked me 3 or 4 times now to make sure you take the chicken out of the fridge."
Get out.
Hold on a second. Did you take the chicken out of the fridge?
I was in the parking lot, so no, I didn't.
Oh, jeez. Well, you blew it.
See, this is again going back to the nice person that I am. There's specifically a pre-made chicken meal in the freezer, and I didn't want to have to her to worry about cooking.
Well,
so I said, put it in the fridge. Put it in the fridge.
He's a sneaky guy. And this is maybe TMI for our listeners. Actually, not really. Whatever. You guys do whatever.
They're old enough. Whatever.
So he's a sneaky guy. And we had a plan. Before he went into his procedure, he was like, "I want frozen pizza. And we have these buffalo chicken wing, boneless wing things that you pop in the air fryer. They taste great."
Oh,
so
please.
He's being all sneaky. And when he gets in the car, he's like, "They told me I can't eat hot stuff." Well, the nurse had called me, obviously, and she was like, because I'd asked, why does he want the chicken to be taken out so badly? And she was like, "Well, we said he can go back on a diet, a regular diet, but he really doesn't want anything spicy." So then this guy gets in the car and tries to tell me that the doctor told him he can't eat spicy food. I'm like, "I got you. I'm not going to feed you spicy food, but I know you're trying."
I was trying to not be a burden on her.
So you were, what's the word? A liar. You lied. Is that a fair characterization? I mean, it's look, you were under the influence of some really, I don't want to call it the good stuff because that's encouraging certain behaviors, but it's something else. I'm glad you're doing better. Are you back to your regular diet, or are you pulling chickens out of the freezer? Or what's the situation?
The chicken never got pulled out of the freezer.
Well, because it needed 24 hours to defrost. So then we had hot dogs instead because he likes hot dogs. So,
right. I mean, who doesn't? Well, right on, man. I'm glad it went well. Glad you're still with us. Although, I mean, endoscopies are not really particularly risky procedures, as I understand it. What did you watch in recovery? Did you fall asleep and wake up drooling on yourself with Shrek playing in the background?
There was no recovery time. It was basically woke up, close my eyes, walk into car, close my eyes, in the car, close my eyes.
Yeah, he slept into the evening, and then we watched some preseason football.
Oh, right on. Okay. Hey, that works too. Cool, man. Anything else to add, or should we swing it over to the old Nerdbomber here? She's not old. I don't know.
Yeah,
Swing it
that's
over.
right.
Go ahead, swing it over.
All right, young lady.
My biggest thing, and I know some of our listeners have been really excited for me to try this game out. Hades, which has been released on PC and was on Switch, finally came to Xbox and PlayStation and launched on Game Pass when it came to Xbox. So needless to say, I don't have to pay for it. Great. Everybody wins. I played it. And it is so good. I don't normally like roguelikes. I think we've talked about this in the past. I hate having to start over and lose progress and, slog my way through the same levels over and over again. Even if they're procedurally generated, still usually not my thing. However, somehow, and I'm not entirely sure how, but Supergiant managed to make me fall in love with Hades. And I think I've put about 9 hours into the game so far. And again, the game just came out like a few days ago. So that's pretty impressive, I think. And it's very difficult. I have yet to finish an entire run just yet. But the nice thing about this game is that even though you don't finish a full run, you still feel like you're getting stronger every time you fail. There's an element of there's things to collect, tasks to complete. And one of the main things that I'm really enjoying, outside of just the fact that the gameplay is a lot of fun, is one of the pillars of this game is actually the story. And you play as Hades' son trying to escape hell. And obviously Hades and all of his minions don't want you to do that. So you're working your way through the levels of hell to get out. But every time you die, you go back to the house of Hades. And there's characters and a lot of mythological characters, the gods, goddesses. And you interact with them, you interact with folks like Achilles, and, you get a lot of mythological storylines and background story here. I think the story is one of the most compelling parts of the game, even if, the gameplay is great, but even if you're not really into the idea of dying over and over, the fact that you go back and you get another snippet of the story makes it feel like you're not just bashing your head against a wall, you're kind of failing with a purpose. You're, advancing the plot. You're collecting items to help yourself get stronger and, move forward in the game. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. I mean, the art style, the soundtrack, the gameplay, and even the fact that they give you so many different ways to play the game. You get to pick a different weapon. There's 6 weapons that you can choose from to start each run. And each one has a completely different style of play. Some are ranged weapons, some are close encounters, some are swords that have a little bit of range or a spear, and it makes every run feel different enough so that even though you are kind of advancing towards the same goal over and over again, it doesn't feel like it's super repetitive. It doesn't feel like I just have to do the same thing over and over and over again. And even the boss fights, they change it up every now and then so that you don't really know what you're going to expect on every single run. And it's, like I said, if anybody out there is questioning whether or not you should try it, definitely think you should. Even if you don't like roguelikes or you don't like difficulties, there's, and it's kind of almost a bad name for it. There's a God mode. And in my head, I was like, I don't want to play in God mode. I'm going to die a lot. But it's actually the opposite, where you get damage resistance as you play. And the more you die, the higher your damage resistance. And you can turn it on and off. However, if you don't want to have damage resistance on for a run, you can turn it off. But it's cumulative for your entire playthrough. And so you can turn it on and off as you see fit. And the developers included that so that if you don't like bashing your head against the wall, you just want to see the really cool story, you can do that and not get super frustrated. So
yeah, which is good. I roguelike, it's a tough genre for me. It sounds like it's a tough one for you too.
Mm-hmm.
I dabbled with that with Everspace, which I did like Everspace, but it's punishing by nature, right? That's what they're It's what the goal is, it seems like, with roguelites. So to be able to build in something like that, I think, is a critical design element for that game. So it sounds like many more hours than the 9 you've already put in to come.
Yeah, definitely high recommend. And like, one of the things that a lot of other roguelikes don't have is the ability to save in the middle of a run. And even like the entire run, I looked up to see how long it usually takes people to complete. And if you do an entire completed run, you're looking at maybe 45 minutes. So it's not like when you die, you're looking at having to redo 5 hours worth of work. You know what I mean? And
right.
The pacing of it is great. So definitely recommend, even if you're not a fan of the genre. I think everything else about this game is really well done, and I think you might enjoy it. So check it out.
Cool. So let's play Jeopardy. The quiz topic today is Jeopardy. The quiz topics that are selected by our Patreons are typically personally based, and this makes sense because I'm a fan of Jeopardy. I actually had a friend a while back who was on Jeopardy, which is really cool for me. I don't watch much because I don't have cable or even like an antenna or anything, but I watch reruns on Netflix a lot. I'm big into trivia, so I'm going to be, emceeing this bad boy. Let's look at the standings first, because things are nodding up here. I'm at 12-2, Nerdbomber 8-6, Techtic 6-8, and of course Ben at 1-0, undefeated. So there are stakes here. I wanted to say that to start. We're nearing a tie for second place situation. Techtic, here's hoping you keep your hot streak going. Good luck, players. That's something that the late great Alex Trebek would always say. Good luck, players. Let's look at the big board. These are all numerically based clues, of course, as per usual. So Jeopardy's been on for many seasons. How many clues are written in each season of Jeopardy?
Who goes first here?
Oh, let's go with... Sorry. We're going to go with Nerdbomber. She's got the better record.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of what the grid looks like. I think, there's 7 categories and then 7 levels of money, maybe? So 49, and then they usually do 3 of those a game. So let me pull out my calculator here. 49 times 3, we're at 147. Then you can't forget the final Jeopardy, so 148. And I think they do it, they don't take a break, do they? I think they do it every week. Maybe we'll take a few off for holidays. Let's do 50 weeks of the year. So I'm going to say 7,400 clues.
Okay. And over to Techtic?
1 clue.
Oh, he thinks I busted. I think I don't have a high enough answer.
Nerdbomber, you are right. You do not have a high enough answer. So I would imagine that they write a lot of clues that don't get used, first of all. Your math was a little skewed, Nerdbomber. There are not 3 rounds of Jeopardy per episode. There are 2.
Oh, well.
There's Jeopardy and Double Jeopardy, and then Final Jeopardy. I was just trying to look up. I actually don't know how many episodes there are per season, but there are 13,800 clues written per season. So Nerdbomber on the board here early, and we can move into the next very traditional, Online Warriors quiz question. When did Jeopardy first debut? And Techtic, you will start here.
I think it was earlier than people think. So I'm going to say 1970.
I'm trying to think. I feel like there was color television because I feel like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune came out the same year. And I'm trying to think when color TV started. If I go earlier than him, I only give myself a small window, though. I'm going to say 1980.
So it is earlier than you think. However, it is earlier than either of you said. March 30th, 1964. So
see, I wanted to say 60, but then I only gave myself a small 10-year window. I didn't like that.
Jeopardy has had a very interesting production history. It's been on and off the air a lot more than people would think. The one that started on 64 aired until 75, and then another version aired from 74 to 75, and then it was revived 78 to 79. And the current version, I believe, started running in 1984. So there's been a lot of different renditions. I believe Trebek didn't come in until the 1984 version, but nonetheless, the show itself was created on March 30th, 1964, and first aired. So no points for either of you on that one. But now we're going to get into some of the statistics, famous champs that you may know. You're going to hear their names here. Ken Jennings has the longest winning streak in terms of number of Jeopardy wins. How many wins did he accrue?
I don't think he was on for months. I feel like it was like a month. I'm going to say 30.
Techtic?
That's a solid guess. That's right around what I was going to guess. So I'm going to say... let's go 31.
Oh, wow. You're doing that.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
He's doing that, and it's working. He won 74 in a row. So he was on for, I think that translates to something like 3 months. The second longest winning streak is 32, so you're both very close to that. That was James Holzhauer, who I believe we'll talk about a little bit more in a second. But Ken Jennings won 74 times in the year 2004. I guess from June 2nd to July 23rd, and then from September 6th to November 30th. So there must have been a season break in there somewhere. So you guys are now tied at one apiece. And now we are going to get to the highest one-day total winnings for a regular winner. This is not tournaments or any college champions or anything. This is held by James Holzhauer. And in fact, he holds the top 10. All of them were him. He holds all the records for total winnings in 1 day of play on Jeopardy. What is the highest one-day total ever achieved on Jeopardy?
$900,000.
Oh, absolutely not. That's too much. I'm going to say 20,000, even though I know it's more. I feel like it's more in the range of like 50 or 60, but I'm going to stick with 20.
Tactic. So how Jeopardy works is... Final Jeopardy, you bet your money. So you can't bet more than you have. I don't think, even if you got every single clue right, I don't think you get more than like $100,000. It's $131,000.
Is it obvious that I don't watch Jeopardy?
It was a little obvious after that. $900,000 it's a chunk of change. Okay, but James Holzhauer did that on April 17th, 2019. So fairly recently, much more recently than Ken Jennings. And so Nerdbomber jumps into the lead again. It's 2-1. I have one question left, but I also do have a tiebreaker, so we will get to that as it is needed. But now the cream of the crop of statistics. We're not talking about one-day winnings now. We're talking about all-time total winnings. And I mentioned Ken Jennings. I mentioned James Holzhauer. Neither of them hold the all-time. All-time goes to Brad Rutter, I believe, because of the Tournament of Champions. It's counting the Tournament of Champions, which was a big pot. I think it was Brad Rutter, Ken Jennings, and James Holzhauer who competed in that. That happened, I think, last year. But Brad Rutter's total Jeopardy winnings, how much has he won from Jeopardy over all the times he's been on the show and the tournaments, anything like that? All-time total winnings.
So I go first with this one, right?
That's correct.
Okay, I know he doesn't hold the record for like the longest tenure or whatever, but I'm going to use that as the basis. So it was like about 70 days. And assuming you maybe win like, I don't know, 60 on average, if you're super good, like Ken Jennings was, that would get you 4 million. And then if there's a big pot involved, I would say maybe add another 2 more. So I'm going to say 6 million.
No, it's more than that. And this isn't a +1. I swear to you guys.
Oh, come on. You already +1 to me. You can't do it again. We had a rule instituted.
I was going to pick 7 million either way. This isn't fair. 8 million.
Well, I wouldn't worry too much, Techtic. You both busted. $4,953,435.
So I should have stuck with my original math.
You should have stuck. I think you said 4 million at one point. That would have been much closer, of course, without busting. Brad Rutter at number 1, Ken Jennings at number 2 with over 4 million as well, 4,372,000. James Holzhauer in third with just a hair under 3 million, and then it drops off after that. No one else is over 1 million. So that tells us that Nerdbomber is the winner here. Techtic, your reign of terror, in a sense, is over because you've been really racking things up here, and you've been doing very well. But Nerdbomber emerges victorious here. She goes to 9-6. Techtic goes to 6-9, and I'm sitting at 12-2. So next week, Nerdbomber will host, and she will be hosting, I believe, a quiz to be administered to 3 people. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to have a special guest joining us, I believe, next week. No promises. But we look forward to that. And we thank you all for joining us here on the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast. If you liked what you listened to, head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, hit us up on Twitter at the handles we already mentioned. And you know what? Get out there and tell... Oh, boy. Open to suggestions on this one, guys.
Tell your kindergarten teacher. Go find her or him and go tell them. Send him
a letter. Snail mail. I mean, we're not like urgently looking for new listeners, so it can take a couple days. I would assume your kindergarten teacher is, if they were teaching you when you were in kindergarten, they might be a little bit on the older side. They might not be technologically inclined to the extent of using, electronic mail. So snail mail, smoke signal, send them a page, whatever it takes. Tell your kindergarten teacher, and you know what? Thank your kindergarten teacher for all the great work they've done. Except if they stunk, then maybe don't. But tell your kindergarten teacher, and have a great week, and we'll talk to you all soon.